Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Civivi Knives Rustic Gent Pocket Knife. So first off, I want to thank very much my buddy Chris, who actually sent this guy along. He said basically, hey Nick, you want to check out a Rustic Gent? I said, yep. Okay, good conversation. He sent it along. I appreciate it very much, and it's very kind of him, so thank you for that, Chris. Next thing, size comparison. This is not a big knife. Here it is against the Ontario Rat number 2, the Spyderco Delica. Yeah, you can see here, about the same in there. Size-wise, here it is against the, where the heck is it? Oh, Spyderco PM2 right here. And then finally, I'll go ahead and I'll do a slightly more traditional size comparison. This one's for Uncle Randy. Here it is against the Buck Knives 110. So you can see here, yeah, it's a big old freaking knife. Pardon me, and this guy is markedly smaller than the 110. Although you can see here that there has perhaps been a little bit of inspiration taken from time to time. So that's a beautiful thing. Next thing, actually, really, there aren't that many other things. This is a Civivi knife, and Civivi is the budget wing of WE Knives. This is a made-in-China pocket knife, and Civivi's actually been doing some really exciting work lately, so that's a beautiful thing. And there we go. So let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, the ugly of this very interesting little knife right here. So to start with, it is a nice little size. You know, the blade here is coming in just under 3 inches, and it's good that they came in under that legal line. But it is a little bit bigger than some of your normal traditional patterns, so it's going to be not only, I think, a little easier for them to do, but also it's going to be a nice size. It's going to have enough blade for a lot of folks, so that's a beautiful thing. Next thing, this has a very easy disassembly. I mean, to start with is the fact that a lot of traditional knives can't be disassembled at all, so any disassembly is good disassembly. But more importantly, it is a... It was pretty straightforward to take down. There were a couple of little things from time to time, but I think part of that was me not being a brilliant man. I'm very happy to see that as they're going traditional, they're maintaining the disassemblability of that. Next thing, this is a backlock knife. What I mean by that is that if you open this guy up, you cannot close it unless you are pressing down on this little tail lock right here area, and that then pops up this bar, which you can actually see lift up right here as I do it, and that gets out of this little groove here. I mean, backlocks are I'm explaining how a backlock works. Look, it's a well-known technology in the knife-making world. In fact, same thing that's been used in the Buck 110 whatnot. Nonetheless, it is it's definitely a backlock. And there are so many slip joints being made right now, and slip joints are a fun thing. But at the same time, it's kind of nice to see a locking knife in the traditional world. A good old-fashioned backlock is an amazing thing, and this is a good one. I appreciate very much that they went the backlock route. That's good. Next thing, this is on washes, which makes sense for a traditional style two-hand open knife. This is not something that you need to have a fast action, so to speak. And so I appreciate that they went with washes just because they're going to wear in over time. And frankly, it's going to collect less. Well, I mean, the crud will be in there, but they won't affect things as much as bearings. That's a nice thing. Next thing, blade on this guy. D2 steel. Solid steel, absolutely. It has a very thin edge, which I appreciate. The grind on this is great. This is a very, very good grind, and I love that Civivi has been pushing that boundary. I love that Civivi is really making these really thin knives, or I'm sorry, well, these really thin blades with thin edges that just really put a lot of traditionals, well, I'm sorry, they put a lot of modern knives to shame, and they kind of echo the thin blades that used to be found in the traditional world. And so that's a beautiful thing, and frankly, it is a classically shaped blade. Like I said, I mean, you can't go that far in the traditional market without seeing a good old-fashioned full-head clip point here, and I appreciate that. It also has a sharpening choil, by the way, which is something that isn't commonly found in the traditional world, but is something I appreciate very much. Next thing, this guy comes with a clip pouch. What I mean by that is this is a pouch. It's like a pocket slip for a pocket knife, except it comes with a clip on it. And so this guy can kind of hang out at the very edge of your pocket here. We'll talk about it a little bit more later, but the thing is, it is a fine thing to have, and it is a, come on, there we go. It's a fine thing to have, and it's a good way to overcome the fact this knife doesn't have a clip. There you go. Next thing, the lanyard hole on this guy is well done. For me, a good lanyard hole is basically not visible except when you need one. And it is well positioned right here. And this is actually a knife for which having a lanyard might be advantageous. So, and not enough for me to do it, mind you, but nonetheless, a man's got standards. Sorry, lanyard people, I'm just a dick. But anyways, it's good lanyard hole there with easy access. Very easy, yeah, so that's good. Next thing, this is using classic materials. There are, in fact, a couple of variants of this that have already been released, hopefully more to come. But all of them pair either a micarta, They have a green, they have a tan micarta, and they also have a black micarta with this little bit of carbon fiber up the top here. The carbon fiber, of course, not being a classical material, but it is nice to see micarta coming out of China. But to be honest with you here, micarta is a beautiful material, and it's something that I think is underutilized, and so to see it being used here, and it is a very traditional material. If you look at a lot of actual, like, more traditionally styled knives, like, for instance, this little Pena front flip Atrapa, which is substantially more money and whatnot, but nevertheless, you know, a good micarta absolutely looks great and can really add to the traditional feel of a good knife. So I like seeing the micarta, and I like seeing the variants of it, too. And so to me, all that's the good, is that it's got some classic materials, a good lanyard hole, comes with a clip pouch, it's got a very nice blade to it, it's got on washes, it's got a backlock to it, it is easy to disassemble in a very nice size. To me, the great thing about this knife, though, is actually just the fact that Civivi is opening their range a little bit, right? You know, Civivi, for a long time, has been doing sort of good budget knives, like, come here, Praxis. Here around here somewhere, this little guy right here. Civivi Praxis. This is one of the earliest Civivis, but it's sort of a very iconic one for them because, you know what? Look, it's basically a modern front flipper, modern flipper frame lock sort of thing. Well, liner lock. I can't freaking talk. But nevertheless, it is a modern knife, decidedly, just done at a better price point. This guy is a traditional knife. It is a modern traditional, particularly with the carbon fiber on there, but this is aiming squarely at the traditional world. And I love, 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 love seeing new brands, particularly brands that are pushing the budget end, trying this modern traditional game, because not only is the traditional market crucially underproduced right now, what I mean by that is that there aren't that many makers putting out traditional knives, and the ones that are worth a damn tend to sell out instantly. But this will infuse a little bit more, traditional sensibility into a decidedly modern brand. I would love to see more materials, more traditional styles, more traditional blade grinds, please, into a modern brand. That's a beautiful thing. And so to me, what's great about this guy is not so much the knife itself, but the fact that Civivi is going traditional, which I think is a beautiful thing for their brand and for, frankly, the knife market generally. The bad side, the price on this guy is pretty neutral. It's not necessarily bad. It's $75. Look, is it a great price? Not super, oh my God, but it's pretty good. They're not ripping my face off here. I feel okay about the price. Whatever, not a big deal. Next thing, if we are going traditional, carbon fiber? Really? I feel like this is sort of an area where they are showing the fact that they're not in the traditional knife game particularly. I would really have liked to have seen either a little bit of a wood or maybe a different color micarta or something like that. I think there were lots of ways they could have made this look a little more traditional, and that would have made it appeal a little bit more to people. Carbon fiber does not feel like a rustic gent sort of thing. There's nothing rustic about carbon fiber. It's beautiful, but I don't know that that's exactly what we're looking for here. And honestly, this half of the knife is much more attractive than this half of the knife when you combine the two. Yeah, that doesn't do it for me. But that's bias. Speaking of bias, fullers on the blade, these little grooves right here, this is great because it helps you open the blade. It is absolutely an easy blade to open because of that. But the thing is, this is very, very sharply drilled here, and so as a result, it's going to collect crud. I'm going to be using this, and you can get mine. You can get in there with like a Q-tip or something and clean that out given time. But it's still, you're definitely going to collect crud as you cut with this guy. That is something to keep in mind. And also the way that it's laid out, it'll produce a little bit of drag if you're cutting into a firm surface. So there you go. Next thing, the Civivi logo. Speaking of traditionality, this doesn't feel all that super traditional. Again, I'm being kind of picky here, but it is definitely like, guys, not modern knife, traditional knife. Modern, traditional. It's sort of a weird duality, and it kept bugging me a little bit. Next thing, the clip pouch on this guy. I love the idea, and I appreciate the fact that if they're not going to include a clip, which, by the way, I would maybe argue is bad, I think there are probably clever ways that they could have given you the option to put a clip on this guy, which I think would make it more compelling for a lot of people, because pocket clips are a wonderful thing. But look, the clip pouch here, it works fine to hold the knife, and certainly, but the thing with the clip pouch is that it's actually kind of a pain to do. Because in practice, when this is in your pocket, you are not going to be able to reach in and pull this knife out. I mean, maybe you can, but the thing is, even on this side, this is relatively smooth. There's not really any texturing to grab there, and so unless you have a perfect grab, and chances are the knife is going to be way down here, it is kind of a pain to get in there and pull this knife out naturally. So you might want to use a lanyard or something like that, but in practice, what it ended up turning into is I take this out of the pouch, I kind of do one of these things, and I shake the knife into my hand. Now I've got two full hands for a two-hand opening knife, so I have to set the pouch down and maybe like put it under my chin or something like that. Take the knife, shove the pouch back in the pocket if I'm not on a working surface, use the knife, take the knife, two-hand it closed, then find the pouch, reinsert the knife in the pouch, reinsert the pouch in the pocket, all the while trying not to snag the this guy right here on the pocket so I can get the clip in there. This is something that is a great idea, but I'm not sure it was done that well in practice here. So I feel a little bit sort of... I'm glad that they tried, but I don't know that it quite worked out for them. So, you know, whatever, it is what it is. One thing that does bother me a little bit is that the back lock on this guy is a little bit strong. I'm sorry, oh yeah, it is. The spring in it is a little strong. It's better that it's strong than it is weak, but at the same time, I mean, compared to, for instance, on the Buck 110 here or something like that, it's just, the spring tension's a little bit too high. And considering that it's a tail lock, it's not like you're going to ever accidentally disengage this guy. I don't feel like that needs to be as strong as it is, and it ends up being a little bit painful to close. But maybe the biggest annoyance for me is that they've done something that is sort of mind-boggling. Most traditional knives have a half stop. I'm sorry, most slip joints, that is, have a half stop, meaning that when you close the knife, it will stop here, and then it will... you have to push it again. So you have effectively two different pushes, or you have to power through the first one. And you can see there's a second little click. And what they've done is they've done that here. Rather than keeping the back of this rounded off like a conventional back lock, like the Spyderco Delica or something like that, what they have done here is they have produced a knife that has a half stop and a back lock. That doesn't seem necessary. The half stop is a safety measure to make sure that the knife doesn't come closed onto your fingers, but the thing is, this is not under spring tension particularly. Back locks are not fast. It really feels like somebody told them, oh, traditional knives have a half stop, and they made one, but they didn't stop to think about why they would put a half stop in a knife. And so as a result, this just feels really rough to close and open because there's that half stop there. And I don't like that. I don't care for it really at all. And so I would have preferred that they've skipped the half stop there and made this knife just a good old-fashioned tradition or a back lock with a rounded top there. Just make the deployment easier, it'd make the close easier. I'm kind of complaining, and it's not hurting anybody necessarily, but it's not necessary. And it's kind of a weird, like, you got the spirit of traditional, kind of, but you didn't get the practicality. And so, to me at least, that's what's bad, is that it's got a half stop that it doesn't need. The back lock spring's a little strong. The clip pouch is a good idea, but doesn't work that well in practice. The Civivi logo and the carbon fiber feel a little off for a traditional market, and it's got the crud collecting fuller, and the price is fine. Final conclusion, I think it's a neat knife. 100%, it's a reasonably small, it's an easy to disassemble back lock. It's on washes, got a nice blade to it, comes with a pouch, couple of choices of materials, and you know what? More importantly, it happens to represent the entry of one of the most interesting new brands these days into the traditional scene. Mind you, it's a little non-traditional in its traditionality in a few ways. It's got kind of a weird carry option with no clip on it. They put a half stop in it for some damn reason, and the back lock is maybe a little bit strong, but mostly I think it's a pretty nice little piece. And I can see a lot of people being very excited or interested in this guy, particularly if you're looking for something that is kind of modern traditional and you're not looking to pay a bunch of money for it. You know what? Not so bad. For me, at least, I think the half stop and the back lock thing are a little bit off-putting, and I'd honestly prefer something that's a little bit more traditional aesthetically. If I'm going traditional, I'd like to go traditional. And this isn't exactly where they want it to go. But the thing is, I am much more excited about this knife, not because of the knife itself, but because of what it represents. I'm more excited about the future that this knife indicates rather than the present that it's in. Because this shows an exciting future, but also kind of a scary future. If Civivi is breaking into the traditional market, this could be both awesome and scary for the community. It's awesome in that more people, let's say that Civivi keeps going this route and makes some really nice traditional knives, and they could. They could absolutely start using stainless steels. They could start doing modern there is so much possibility for traditional knives coming out of a place like Civivi. That would be awesome, because more people would gain access, both in terms of price and availability, to good traditional knives. But it's also a little scary in that right now, this is a very soft market. What I mean by that is that right now in the traditional game, there are relatively few makers. And they're either making in very low quantities, So you get like GC, that is, that they sell out everything they make. And so really the only place to get one at any given moment is off of a scalper, and that sucks. But they're also making, or you get makers that are doing really low quality work, or you're getting makers that are, custom and commanding a super high price, like Pena and whatnot. So that's really your options for traditionals. And so the idea of a readily available Civivi traditional knife could put really good traditionals in more pockets, but it would also put current makers under a lot of pressure. And I think that's got, pros and cons. We'll see if they rise to the challenge. But nonetheless, I guess my final conclusion on this guy is that it's a knife that's a solid little tool here. And I suspect a lot of people would very much like this guy. But I am much more excited not about what the Rustic Gent represents right now, but about the future it could represent and the possibilities if these kinds of companies are willing to learn a little bit more from the traditional knives and produce things that are faithful, excellent implementations of the patterns that many of us, well, grew up with, know, and freaking love. So anyways, there you go. I hope this has been interesting to you and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. And by the way, I phrased that poorly. I didn't grow up with traditionals. The freaking Delica is older than I am, I think. But nonetheless, maybe that's not true. Anyways, nonetheless, I hope this has been interesting and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.